Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and all non-binary friends. Welcome to a very special presentation of the social distancing players called U2, scenes that reflect stories of abuse, strength, and reflection in the era of Me Too. Takes place in 2019 in a variety of simple vignettes. Tonight's show is written by Barrett Rhoads, directed by Kristina Coia, and produced by Dan Kostelec, and stars May Hammer, Melanie C.H. Barber, Paula Long, Mira Singer, Heba Toulan, Katie Horahan, Alec, Katherine Hauser, Nathaniel Barber, Jacqueline Youm, Ken Bateman, and Steve Anderson. Content warning for this evening. There's harsh language mentioning of death, wounds, and claustrophobia, and trigger warnings for sexual assault, sexual violence, rape, discrimination, pedophilia, and trafficking. If you are in need of assistance or know somebody who does, we encourage you to please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline 24/7 at 1-800-799-SAFE, or the National Sexual Assault Hotline, again, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at 1-800-656-HOPE. You can also visit RAINN, RAINN.org. From the author, this play is dedicated to all the victims. Many of them do not have a forum to tell their stories, and far too many have had their voices silenced forever. It is my sincere hope that telling these stories will raise awareness that ignoring this pervasive scourge to our society or sweeping it under the rug will not make it go away. It will not hurt less. Ultimately, we all suffer from abuse until none of us do. And now, Act 1, Scene 1, a grief episode.
Come in.
I think you already have my paperwork.
Yes, the DA sent it over. Tawny, is it? Okay. So I would like you to tell me why you're here today.
What? Like, you can't tell me you don't know why I'm here.
Well, you didn't fill that out in the intake form. No, okay. I know what it is in the file that was given to me, but I can find that everyone has their own side of the story to tell. And besides, I'm sure you've seen the movies where the doctor gets the reluctant patient to tell the whole story. It's just part of the process. So why are we here today?
We're here today because the DA needs you to, how did he put it, sign off on a certain paperwork before they can proceed with my case.
You heard that?
Heard it? That asshole waited until I was in the room to call you and schedule this appointment.
I'm so sorry. I was not aware of that.
Look, what you'll find is that blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's start over.
Let's go.
Start over.
We got this.
Hold on.
Don't worry, Chris, we're on it.
You guys. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Redo it. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Totally fine. Oh, my cat's sneezing. Give it a second. Okay, you're good.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Come in.
I take it you already have the paperwork, right?
Yes, the DA sent it over to me. Tawny, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, so I'd like you to tell me what brings you in today.
What? Like, you can tell me you don't know why I'm here.
You didn't fill that part in the intake form. No? Okay. I know what's in the file that was given to me, but I find that everyone has their own side of the story. So, and I'm sure you've seen the movies where the doctor gets the reluctant patient to tell the whole story. It's just part of the process. So, why are we here today?
We're here today because the DA needs you to, how did he put it, sign off on certain paperwork before they can proceed with my case.
You heard that?
Heard it? I mean, the asshole waited until I was in the room to call you and schedule this appointment.
I'm sorry, I was not aware of that.
Look, what you'll find is that anyone they don't think has any value is going to be intimidated and abused as much as legally possible.
It sounds like there's a lot to your story that's not in the notes the DA sent over.
Let me guess. You got a criminal history, a partial medical history, and a police report from Saturday night. Am I right?
Well, now you've got me very curious. So let's start with the obvious. The police report from 2 nights ago says you broke into a residence you had been to many times as a guest, only this time you stole an experimental formula from the workplace of Dr. Nicholas Olke, who's pressing charges.
There's no evidence that I stole anything because I didn't.
Does that mean you didn't break into Mr. Olke's residence?
Legally, yes. Technically, maybe.
Okay, let's go with why maybe.
Okay, 2 years ago, I was hired by Nick to work for his chemical research company. And before you ask, I was a researcher. Okay, I have a degree in applied chemistry. I worked for Nick for about 2 months before he starts inviting me over to his house to work, assisting him at his so-called in-home laboratory. His wife makes us dinner and we work late to make deadlines for his, industrial and military contracts.
What kind of contracts?
The kind you don't ask about if you like your life and liberty. Nick takes those contracts that need ethically gray areas to be successfully completed. And the formula he says I took is a type of chloroform that could be weaponized by having a low vaporization threshold.
Well, that sounds very technically difficult. So you stole a chemical weapon you helped him develop?
I told you I didn't steal anything. Okay, Nick is paranoid that everyone working at the main lab will try something, which is why he separates so much of the processing. And since I'm coming and going from his house all the time, he gives me the code to the alarm system. So technically, I didn't break into anything to get in.
And why the report?
Because I don't work for Nick anymore, and he's convinced I'm trying to scoop him for some lucrative military contract.
And you did use the code to get in, but then didn't take anything. And by coincidence, this 5-ounce bottle disappeared. You know why the police don't believe you, right?
I don't care what they believe. What's important is what they can prove. Okay, and as I'm sure you know from your own studies, doctor, it's impossible to prove a negative. Just because they can't find a bottle doesn't mean I took it.
Tony, can you tell me about why you no longer work for Mr. Olke?
Because the prick fired me.
I'm gonna need more detail than that if you can.
What does your file say?
It doesn't even mention that you were a former employee and that was the reason you were previously granted access to the house. So I'm relying on you.
Well, then maybe we're done.
Yeah, okay, that's one option. But the problem is that so far, the only information you gave me that I didn't already have is that you used to work for Mr. Olke. And without more of an explanation, that fact alone can't help you.
Look, I don't need your help.
Do you really understand why you're here? I'm supposed to evaluate you so that
and trying to get me to confess to larceny. Yeah, no.
And make recommendations on prosecuting you, including your level of cooperation and mental state.
Same thing.
My recommendations can help or hinder you, Tawny. I'm not a bad guy here. I'm neutral and looking for facts. Right now, it seems like the DA didn't even get a complete picture, and I want to fill in the blanks.
Okay, look. Almost as soon as I start going to his house for work, Nick tries to get me in bed. Okay, I finally given at the office, but I don't want to have sex with him in a bed he shares with somebody else. I mean, and before you ask, no, he did not stop sleeping with his wife, and he did remind me of that fact at least twice a week. The more I resisted him for that one thing, the more he wanted me to slip out of the home lab, and I couldn't.
How long did that continue?
For almost a year.
And how did you feel about it?
I don't know.
I'm not sure I believe that.
Oh, suck it. Thrilled that someone I think is important makes me feel important. I hate myself because I really like Marie, his wife, but I feel used. I feel satisfied and delighted. I feel dirty and I want more, but I want out.
I'm detecting some conflict.
Can I go now?
I'm really sorry. That was very unprofessional of me, but please tell me what happened next.
What an ass. Oh, God. He got aggressive, verbally and physically. I'm not so sure that he changed, but he changed in the way that he treated me. I didn't feel, I no longer felt safe going to his house or being alone with him.
And what?
One night when I tell him no, he flips out on me and tells me to get out of his sight and out of his home. You know, the next morning, he fires me in front of the whole office, and it's humiliating. I'm in shock. I don't understand, since I'm one of his leading researchers and the only one with access to his home lab. And then I realized retaliation for telling him no. I want to say something, but he's so angry. Everyone is just looking at me, staring, and I guess I just don't know what to do. So I just run out. I'm numb.
I know this is difficult to talk about, but I want you to know that reaction is completely normal in this kind of abusive situation. Are you familiar with the classic stages of grief?
Anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I want to add 2 points. So the first point is that denial comes before anger.
Look, I'm not sure. Never mind.
And the second is that recently some mental health professionals have added shock as the first stage and testing as stage 6 between depression and acceptance.
Well, good for them. I mean, did they find a way to make it suck less? Because you know what? That would be stupendous.
There are no substitutes for going through this process. And it seems you've already figured out everyone goes through these stages at their own pace.
You know, I really don't want to talk about this anymore.
Look, Tani, this file has some interesting entries before the incident at Mr. Olkay's house the other night. And after hearing what I just did, I'm starting to think they may all be related.
All right, fine. I'm Black. I'm female. You're the only white person in the last 2 years that even pretended to take seriously anything I have to say. And Nick sure as hell doesn't care. After he fires me, I get picked up for disorderly. I'm sure you can find that in your folder. But the police don't lift a finger to help me because they can look in a folder too. I usually don't plan to go to the police, but since they invited me to the office for a short and necessary stay, I figure I'll speak up. Of course, Officer Empathy and Old Spice informs me there's nothing they could do. It's much easier to direct me back out the door since the sex was consensual and being fired for harassment had to go through the court system. I mean, they treated me like I was dirty.
Well, did you...
Don't bother asking, okay? I had just lost my job and Nick was trashing me to everyone he knew, so I couldn't get another one. I mean, I struggled to pay my rent. So no, I didn't hire a $200 an hour lawyer to recoup damages and move on with my life. I get stuck. I get pissed. I don't sleep. I don't have money to eat. And I become such a bitch, no one will talk to me. I mean, I killed myself working for Nick to the point that I don't know anyone outside of work.
It sounds like you had a very difficult time.
Look, like I said, I'm Black and I'm female. You see the things I did to pay for college? I'm not proud of any of that. But it's hard to turn down the money when I'm not sure if I'm able to enroll for the next semester. And it doesn't matter how good your grades are if you can't afford to pay. And I'm not a candidate for student loans because you know what? My parents died and left me with nothing because they had nothing. My brother went into foster care and I barely avoided the streets by getting into college and staying in.
Lots of students work for the university to earn money. I mean, making pizzas for one of the cafeterias would have been far safer.
You know what? For minimum wage and limited hours. I tried that for a minute and realized I wouldn't even be able to pay for rent-controlled housing for students with those jobs. I mean, the point is I have no one looking out for me, no one giving me advice, no one giving a shit at all. And it doesn't get better after I graduate, get a job, and they get fired from it. I mean, hell, after the police, I go on Facebook to throw up a Me Too. And you know what? I get called a homewrecker and told it was my fault for letting myself get into that situation. But you know what? None of them know how abusive and hostile he is. Saying no to him was like taking a scalpel to my own face.
Tony, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you cooperate by giving back the bottle, I may be able to get you additional help. Based on what you're telling me, there must be other women out there okay as abuse like you. Individuals who act the way you say Mr. Okay does are, generally speaking, repeat offenders. I can't make any promises, but this might get your sentence reduced for breaking and entering.
You know, that's very kind of you, Dr. Black. But I know you heard me when I said I did not remove anything from that house. And truthfully, I'll be very happy to never go there again.
Where is it?
Well, if I didn't take it, then the two possibilities are someone else took it or no one did.
So you don't know where it is?
What time is it?
I don't have time for games, Tawny. I can't help you until you help me.
I mean, you have time for the rest of the story, right?
Yeah.
Well, after getting ignored by the cops and attacked on Facebook, I'm low. I'm sad all the time, and I stop eating, and I stop looking for work, and I just wander around the city to avoid staring at my ceiling and feeling sorry for myself. And then I just start feeling pain. No one at the free clinic can tell me what's wrong, and so I started medicating myself. You know, people back from college, they owe me favors, and I start using painkillers all the time, and I do anything I need to avoid feeling. Anything became illegal drugs, and then I detoxed in county over 30 days. All that while he's benefiting from my work and my ideas. And I'm skipping the details because I know you don't need them. Those were given to you. Those details are why the cops ignore me. That means we have gone through depression, and since we both know I haven't accepted this yet, I must be testing.
Which is what led you to Mr. Olkay's house 2 nights ago.
You know, you might be smart enough to be a doctor after all.
I am smart enough to be a doctor. That's why people call me Dr. Black. And now Dr. Black has the background, just not the answer. And I'm not convinced you don't know where the 5-ounce bottle is.
What time is it?
You can take as long as you need to accept that you aren't going anywhere until I say you can go.
And there it is. I knew you weren't a doctor. Psychobabble might fool people, but not me. So here's what's up. I'm not going back to jail. Someone's got to press charges for the B&E to stick, and I have a feeling those charges will be withdrawn out of grief. Just because he's abusive doesn't mean she stopped loving him.
You're referring to Mrs. Olkay? Marie?
I am. I mean, she and I were never close, but we had an understanding. And I really didn't take anything out of the lab, so there's no way I can be proved guilty of it. I'll be walking no later than this time tomorrow, and I just might get my hands on that cathartic assistance by then, too.
I don't follow. Why would she be in grief and you in a better place?
Well, when you spend a lot of time with someone, you get to know their habits, their pet peeves, their quirks. For example, Marie hates cigarette smoking in the house. Nick, to be a jerk about it, smokes menthol cigarettes because of the strong smell to remind her he's a smoker. But because he can't smoke in the house, he keeps his cigarettes in his lab coat that he always wears in the car on his way to work. That's because he always smokes the first cigarette of the day as he starts his drive on the winding back roads near his house.
Wait, that's all very interesting, but I don't see how it helps any of your predictions come true. No matter what you do, you can't get out of this.
I mean, how about this, Black? Cigarettes will kill you.
They won't kill me. I don't smoke.
See, Marie says that to Nick all the time. Let me ask you a thinking question. A chemical is developed that is harmless while in liquid form, but as soon as it turns to vapor, which it does at a temperature much lower than boiling, it will render anyone within 15 feet unconscious in seconds. How would you deliver that chemical to a military target? Small explosive? Maybe. How about a vaporizer? What if, hypothetically speaking, you find a delivery method that someone would deliver to themselves while driving their car to work?
Wait,
Even though I'm surprised you called this late, I'm so glad you did. I'm looking for an excuse to use this new recipe for,
Mom, maybe
Why are you still wearing that scarf over your head?
it's late.
Take it off. You won't be able to eat anything if your face is covered.
I'm not hungry, Mama.
It's those damn antidepressants you take. They ruin your appetite. Well, they won't be ready for a while. What are you wearing?
You didn't mention what you're making.
I didn't. They're, cookies with toffee chips and butterscotch schnapps.
Sounds like you've been testing the quality of the schnapps, Mama.
Don't make fun of me. You know I forget things. Now take that scarf off before I start to think I died and you've come to tell me.
How much have you had, Mama? I'm not doing this if you're not going to remember.
I remember almost everything. Some things are just fuzzier than others. Finny. Oh my God. What happened, honey? Were you in a car accident? Oh, no. No, I knew it. Are you going to try and tell me that this was another one of your accidents?
No, Mama, I told Buster no. I decided I'd put my foot down and tell him no.
No, what? What do you mean? This is not what no looks like. God, I need a drink.
No, you don't. Just calm down and listen. You know Buster likes to be in charge, to be right all the time. He thinks he can tell me what to do and I will obey. I always have. So he didn't react very well.
What? We need to call the police.
No. Maybe, yes.
Well, honey, you have to make up your mind.
It's not that simple.
Sure it is. We've talked about this before. Either we call or we don't.
I knew this would happen. I should just go.
You should stay and calm your nerves with some... Just stop for a damn minute and tell me what happened.
Three years ago, I had a miscarriage.
What?
It was about a year after I started to become less regular, so I didn't even realize I was pregnant. I was using a diaphragm, so I shouldn't have been pregnant. I could have only been weeks along when one night I started having severe pain in my back. It traveled lower and I became ungodly nauseous. I went to the bathroom. As I sat there, pain got worse. My body began to cramp. It came out like a giant scab. I must have been noisy because when Buster asked what was wrong, when I told him, something in his face went gray. Something changed between us at that moment.
Honey, why didn't you tell me?
The look on his face, mostly, I realized he was trying to get me pregnant. He must have tampered with the diaphragm. I said many times, I don't want a baby right now. He was already verbally abusive. But after that, he made me feel like I failed him over and over and over.
I'm sorry, honey. Do you want to...
No!
Now, you listen to me. Miscarriages happen all the time. They happen to healthy young women in their 20s. He violated your trust.
I know all that. It's just hard to think about anything else when you're constantly told it's your fault. He stays out later and demands sex when he gets home. He doesn't care if I'm in the mood or about trying to get me in the mood. He doesn't have difficulty getting started, but some nights it just goes on and on because he's too drunk for his body to respond. I get sore and he gets scary angry if I try to stop. I don't want to say it's rape exactly, because I was afraid to say no. But I stopped wanting to do it almost a year ago. He tells me to keep my complaints to myself. He treats me like a used and dirty rag.
That's it. I'm going over there and...
Mama, look at my face. There's no telling what he'll do to either of us when he finds out I told you.
Like hell, if he raises a hand to me.
He had his Louisville in his hand and was breaking things with it. He chased me out the door. If I hadn't planned ahead and put extra clothes in the car, I would be naked right now. He came home early tonight, so the bartender must have cut him off early. He's so drunk, he can hardly stand. He didn't want to go upstairs. He wanted it in the kitchen on the hard floor so it would hurt me more. He said that I deserve it.
God, Femi, why do you let him treat you like this?
Being abused once makes it easier. I shut down. My body remembers, protects me. I disappear. Tonight, I said I didn't want sex till he sobered up. Screams ugly words at me. It's obscene and belittling. I'll never get the look of rage or the words he spit out of my head for the rest of my life. I was so scared my feet wouldn't move, even though I planned to run.
Honey.
I didn't see him move through my tears and fear. Just as I feel his hands like overinflated blood pressure cuffs on my arms, he violently shoves me down. My head hits the floor and the room spins and is going black. I start kicking my legs out as hard as I can, and I feel one connect. I faint.
Femi.
When I feel myself waking up, the only thing I feel is burning in my head. I don't know I'm still on the floor. I don't know he's ripped every stitch of my clothes off. I don't know he's raped me.
Then that's it. The answer is yes. We're calling the police. End of story.
He'll kill us both. I took almost 30 minutes to get here because I needed to get dressed and calm myself. The only reason I knew I'd beat him here is I kicked his car keys under the stove as I ran out the door.
Where's my phone?
He's not going to hurt you too, Mom. I won't let him.
And we are going to call so he never hurts you again. It's my job to protect you, no matter how old you are.
When I come around, I pretend I'm still on the floor. I know he's taken Louisville out of its case and is hitting things with it as he walks around mumbling. He fumbles to the bathroom, so I try to run. It is agony to move because the more I move, the more parts of my body report to my brain. I'm only halfway to my feet when I start to throw up. He howls and begins to lumber towards me. I only make it to the front door because he's limping and fall down drunk. The more sober he gets, the more pain he's going to feel. At some point, he'll be on his way here with that bat, stinging with rage and chugging a Red Bull.
I can't believe this is happening. How could I let this happen?
You didn't. I did. That's why I had to make it stop. And now I'll leave to keep him from hurting you too. Don't even think about letting him in this house. Promise me.
I never told you about Burning Man 1986.
What? Really? I've been hearing it my whole life. You need to sober up. But instead, let's talk about this thing that happened 34 years ago. Apparently, you'll talk about it even when it's completely inappropriate.
Honey, Burning Man
was the greatest weekend of your life. You hitchhiked your way across 2 states to get there, and it was all peace and love and music and mud and
Demi, it was the greatest weekend of my life.
You spent the weekend of peace and love, smoking and loving as much as you could for the 100th time.
The greatest and the most terrifying. I wanted to remember it the way I told it to you. And I thought if I keep repeating it that way, I'd be able to forget the part I always left out. You know, I was with a few guys that weekend. Once you're more than 150 feet away from the stage, there were people doing it everywhere. I was 19 and living my life.
Mama? Up until last night, there was a youthful electricity in the air. Then you saw him, my father. When the music stopped, he wanted to smoke and love someone else, so he moved on.
Sunday evening. My head was already spinning, and I decided to have a couple more beers anyway. I pass out. I wake up feeling euphoric, but as I sit up, I notice my clothes aren't on right.
Mama?
I tell myself I've been moving in my sleep. My mind tries to convince my body it's stiff from the heat and the mud and not showering for several days. I try to convince myself it's a side effect of the drugs.
Mama, you can't.
You need to let me say this. I should have trusted you with it decades ago. It's about 5 weeks later that I discover I'm pregnant with you.
What?
I used protection every time, so there was only one conclusion.
All these years. The stories.
I'd always meant to tell you the truth about your father, but I always managed to talk myself out of it. Being plastered all the time makes it easier. I sobered up to have you, but I began medicating myself the day you were born to forget. It affects my memory, but you never get too drunk or too high to forget. Never. I have been trying for almost 35 years. So you see, it was the greatest weekend of my life because it gave me you. There's someone at the door.
Don't answer it. It's Buster.
Hello, Opal Coy, Strickland Police, ma'am. We just need a few minutes of your time. Please open up.
I'm Opal Coy.
Thank you for coming to the door, Miss Coy. I'm here because there's been an incident. We're looking for Femi Coy Moore, and we're told she might be here visiting you. Is she present, ma'am?
What's this all about, officer?
It's regarding her boyfriend, Benjamin Hyde. Is she present?
I'm here, officer. What's going on?
Ma'am, I have unwelcome news. Mr. Hyde was operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated and drove it off the road and down an embankment. He was the only one injured, but I'm afraid the injuries he sustained in the crash were quite severe.
He sustained injuries?
Yes, ma'am. The paramedics declared him dead at the scene. I can see you're injured also. Were you with Mr. Hyde this evening?
What? Yes.
Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me to answer some questions.
Yep. Come on in. Go ahead and sit down. Yana Boyko, is it? You've been through a lot based on the situation we found you in. I know this may be painful or difficult to talk about, so we'll take it as slow as you need to. Do you understand? We can get an interpreter if that would make things easier.
You don't have chairs for anyone else. My English will be okay. You call me only Yana.
Very good. Thank you, Yana. Yana, you're not in trouble. You're now in the protective custody of the United States government. The people I work with are trying to get more information about your captors and the people that they did business with. I'm going to be asking you a lot of difficult questions, and I'd like you to answer them as best you can. The faster and more accurate your answers, the more likely we'll be able to catch and stop them. Do you understand?
Yes. May I ask some question?
Of course.
Can we go to another place? This room is small, and I don't like small places.
I'm new to this facility, and I wouldn't know where else to take you that we could still hear you.
Am I really in United States?
Yana, you are in the Law Enforcement Support Center Field Office of Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Williston, Vermont. You trying to tell me that you don't know that you're in the United States of America? Where else would you be?
There are no window. There is skylight to get sunlight on the skin, but never see the surrounding after we leave the boat.
Well, get back to that in a moment. First, do you have anyone back home you would like us to notify that you've been recovered?
I was reading at the computer. Someone was looking at the Global Peace Index. I asked to have it read Ukrainian words. It tells me that Ukraine has more unrest than Iran, Lebanon, and Philippines. The next most dangerous place in the world is North Korea. My parents are dead. My father was working at school in Crimea that was bombed by Russians, and my mother was crushed during political protest. I never see them again, not even to identify bodies. I do what I need to survive. I cannot make new home. I run away and end up here.
Well, I do want to talk about the situation we found you in. Of all of your captors, who did you meet first?
Hayden. He approached many of us outside Canadian consulate. You know that many cannot get visa. He know what to say to all of us to get us to agree to go with him. To some he promised college. To some he promised safe passage. Some say he will make model or bride. To some he only promised better life. The truth is, we all walk into prison because we want something better. Each of us pay Hayden everything we have to get on big boat.
And when and where was this?
I'm not sure. What year is this? As soon as they have us, we're cut off and never stop moving. They begin and end and mean nothing. Hayden has many nurses keeping us on a drug to make us more agreeable with customer. There is no way to know when night begin or end.
It's 2019.
4 years. When I go with him, with Hayden, I am fleeing the war in Ukraine. We go on the boat and are assigned rooms. We are stored like cattle, and doors are locked. Some of the men try to resist. They are beaten, lashed, or hurt with the electric gun.
Like a taser? That was in Ukraine in 2015. What happened next?
In Ukraine, there is big meaning in family. Everything we do is about family. But family is not good for business. We're at sea for very many days. After we can't see land, they put gas in the room to make us sleep. When we wake up, we're strapped to table in recovery room. For men, they remove what dangle, and for women, they cut where baby grow. They take away my family forever. I'm in so much pain, but cut heal while we are on boat. Many body get thrown off boat because they die or get sick from cuts. This is when they teach us English.
So, all of you were sterilized on the boat. That's unthinkable. I suppose the English was to help you take orders when you get here?
Yes, it also gives us common language, since many of us were from many places and speaking many way. I wish you could have met them.
I wish we'd found you sooner, too. So, you were recruited, got you on the boat, and then they operated on you. Did anything else happen while you were on the boat?
One day, they shoved everyone out of our rooms using guns. There are 3 people of the crew taken to the top of boat. Hayden shouted at them, and then shoot each in head 2 times. Everyone must watch. They are also thrown off boat. They make women clean up mess. I almost blow chunks. Be sick.
I would be too. Do you know how long you were at sea? Did you make any stops?
I remember, we stop at island that is empty of people. It is a military place from old war. There are plant and animal everywhere. Nature is taking it back. The island is small, but it feels big and open compared to rooms on boat. We go inside the wall and find fresh supply and water. No people. Our cuts are healed, and we all do carrying. I don't know how many days into trip. We only came out of our room 2 times. We are cargo to them, not person.
I'm starting to get a clear picture. And just the one stop?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about your arrival here. Please tell me what happened when you got to land. What do you remember?
They shouting, and the boat stop. They give us clean clothes, and a doctor and nurse burn things in barrel and throw some things into water. A white man come on boat and look at all of us. He say we all look like we need more food. Hayden and Captain give him box full of papers and bundle of money. Before, I think America will be better than Ukraine, but money can buy anything here too.
Yana, I want you to know that the border protection official we suspect having done this is being followed and will be arrested the next time he takes such a bribe.
I spend my life leaving bad person and another takes the place. There are many dogs to arrive. One man is not important. What does it mean for me? I have no family. I can never have family. No matter who you punish, I never get this back.
Yana, I know this is difficult. I know that you'll never get back the things you've lost, but this is the land of opportunities. There are still ways to have a family here. When you walk out of here, you can go into town and start writing the next chapter of your story. And it's my job to stop this from happening to others. We can't save them all as much as I like to, but I need you. They need you. With your help, I can keep this from happening to more young girls in Ukraine, girls in India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and even in the United States. We can make a difference. But I can't do it without you. You're the key that unlocks my door to that world. And like I said, I know that it's
Difficult? No. Telling you terrible story, not difficult. I have many terrible story. Bad breath, stained face, and disgusting noises can be yours. I do not want them. I try to make them go away every day. I can't close my eyes without seeing or hearing one, or maybe a group of them. Can we be done?
I already told you we need to know now. Yana, would you please tell me what happened after you made port and the man got paid and left? Please? Please, Yana. For all the girls like you, I can help tomorrow with the right information today.
The men at port stay for dinner and leave just as the sky gets dark. Many trucks come in parade and welcome us to America by taking us away from that boat. We're in truck that holds 5 or 6 with one man driving and one guard. We're going to part of New Ark. This is what signs say. People do not walk on streets. We are taken to an apartment building that looks like many in Ukraine the bomb have broken. The stairs move under feet, and number of rats is same as number of people. Too many. We go inside, and Hayden sort us into 2 groups. I see he keep those that always do what they are told. They go to rooms. These are broken ones. The rest of us are loaded onto 2 tractor trucks. Metal boxes of sins, stains, and bad dreams. We're all together with one crawl hole open on top. There are mattresses on floor of metal box and big metal pot on floor for us to bathroom.
So they just loaded you into a trailer and haul you all over?
We are cow from time we get on big boat. They feed us to keep us alive and mostly healthy, but never enough that we can be strong. They cut into our flesh, using the marks of the doctor like branding. They keep us in small, tight spaces.
Yes, I'm really getting the picture. It's just a lot to process and difficult to take in since I've never really heard these things before.
Great. You are not work here?
No, I do. I was just reassigned to this division. I was asked to interview you and get all the details I could. They tried to prepare me for what you would tell me, but it's a lot.
How am I going to help you if you don't know anything?
I'm a quick learner and I want to help.
I talked to someone else.
Yana, there is no one else. The order from Washington came in 2 weeks ago to increase the number of people on this task force to combat the problem. The other people we rescued with you are being interviewed by all the other agents. There is no one else. I'm new to this, but that doesn't make me less qualified or less willing to help.
All over the world, everyone thinks America is watching. Americans do something, but you do not watch. You do nothing.
Yana, you and the others are our new eyes and ears. The Office of the President has ordered our ambassadors in every country to get regular updates from their host country to assist the CIA, FBI, and DHS in addressing this problem. We are working to double shifts until new staff can be hired. You have my undivided attention. I understand you are lured here under a false pretense and held against your will. That's human trafficking, and it's illegal all over the world. You're not from the United States, but since you're here now in this room, we're on the team that is trying to stop human trafficking. Every time someone is forced into this From here on out, I have failed. You're on my team whether it's fair or not. If I fail, we fail.
There are 32 in the tractor truck at the beginning. We travel to a new place every day. We get new driver every 2 weeks on our loop. One driver for east and one driver for west. There are 2 additional guard. They like hyena. They give pill to make our head relax, and we do not resist. I get hit more than most because I don't like to take pill or listen. I don't want to be cow or toilet. We're on the tractor because none do. I get hit and spit. A few of men try to run away and are beaten or shot. Some resist when someone paid to come into tractor and they are beaten or shot. I try to tell them not to run after we see what happens to first ones, not to resist so we can live. I keep thinking Mountie will find truck. Canada is where I told we are. I tell others every day, in 2 languages, do what you need to do to stay alive until we are rescued. But I fail. Always I fail, and always someone dies. Sometimes we stop and new cows get on truck, but we never replace all that are gone. We're stuck in a filthy box on wheels.
Surely they let you bathe. You had to be clean enough to
Be appealing to paying customers? Yes, we have a routine. Before every stop to pick up money, what drivers call it, we first stop at truck stop with showers. Every time we go after dark, we're told not to talk English and not to talk to anyone outside our group. They take us in small groups and threaten harm on those staying on the truck if we do anything to get attention.
I'm amazed and appalled that you were doing this for years and we never got a tip about it until a few days ago.
People see what they want to see. This, they do not want to see me. They do not want this where they live. In Ukraine, people make scam out of selling brides every day, and nobody does nothing. All over the world, they do nothing. At least you want to do something. What else do you want?
Do you know how you were rescued? Do you know why your truck was stopped? You were crossing from Ohio to Pennsylvania, and a woman at a truck stop was on her smoke break in a hidden spot that your captors could not see. She saw something suspicious and called the local state troopers, or police for all that part of the country. We followed you for 2 days. And thank goodness you stopped several times, or we would never have caught up to you. I'm sorry, I just mean, thank goodness we caught up to you. I want you to know that you're here because one person saw you and called us and put us on the right track. That one person made a difference, just like you're making a difference. Just like I hope to make a difference. Listen, we've been at this for a while. Why don't we take a break?
I'd like to go now. I want to be outside in big space. I want to start new life, like you say. I come back and give you all the stories. I'll help you help others. I come back anytime.
Yana, I'm afraid I am not authorized to release you. You did come into this country illegally and under a false pretense.
We're going to pause for just a moment. I'd like to thank everybody who is currently watching for joining us this evening. You can go to the Eventbrite to support Women Against Abuse. donate there. The link is in the YouTube chat. You can also support the Indiegogo campaign to help support the actors at igg.me/@/U22021. If anybody needs assistance at any point, or if you know somebody who does, please contact the National Sexual Assault 24/7 hotline at 800-656-HOPE or visit RAINN.org. That's RAINN.org. And the National Domestic Violence 24/7 hotline at 800-799-SAFE. We're now going to continue with Act 2.
Jerry, you borrowed the last cup of flour last week. I haven't been to the Reverend Edsel Osgood. Ed, what can I do for you?
I just stopped by to say hello.
You may want to check your shoes. I smell bullshit.
I see you haven't lost any of your charm, Dev. I wanted to see how you're doing since I wasn't able to join you last night for the holiday gathering.
You said more than once that running a mega church requires sacrifice from everyone. The thing that I noticed over the 4 years I dated your daughter is that you and your family never really need anything. On your way out, look around and you'll see plenty of need in this neighborhood.
It looks like you need a vacuum cleaner and a duster. Do you spend any time here at all? It looks like your dirt collection has its own filth collection.
Well, Ed, the help called in sick for a whole year. Super unprofessional, but I promised myself I would make them clean it all when they got... Anyway,
As gross as it would be to stay and chat about the varied species of cockroach you're currently breeding, I just want to say my piece and go.
how long's it been since your last confession?
Not funny. I have always been patient with you. I have always been as patient with you as I can be. I tried to connect with you in the past and get to know you. I don't understand most of the things you do. She always did. And I tried to trust her judgment, but last night, you baffled her too.
Josie's too smart for that. Go on.
The gift you gave her.
She doesn't like it. Like them? Does she? I shouldn't be surprised.
All I know is that she was hurt. She asked why you thought so little of her. You must admit that our gift exchanges have been a little one-sided. Now, I'm sure you didn't intend.
Hold on. She doesn't think I spent enough on her? On any of you? You know, she dumped me 2 months ago, right? You know that if I hadn't accepted the invitation to come over last night, I wouldn't have given you anything, right? Just because you were too busy to attend the annual
She was just really...
Do you know I still make minimum wage? Do you know that my rent went up right before the holiday? No? She doesn't work. She doesn't pay bills. She dumped me because I don't fleece the flock like you do.
That's a damn lie, and you know it.
Maybe. But we both know I'm not likely to ever be able to give her what you do. Hey, if she's disappointed, why don't you go buy some big, expensive, holiday-themed something and say it was from me?
This isn't about me. You know very well she would know whether you picked it out or not.
I don't know why you would care what I got her.
I care about her feelings. She's my daughter. When you have kids...
Whoa! I did not get her pregnant.
Now you listen to me, you filthy... I
kind of wish I got that on video on my phone for YouTube later. Don't worry. I always bathed before I came to your house. Look, you want me to...
I just want you to give her something respectable for Christmas.
I spent every dime I had with my employee discount to give you what I did. You know, that's not true. That's not true. I have this. I was going to give it to charity, like I always do, but it sounds like I don't have to put it in the mail this year.
I didn't know you had an Uncle Donnie.
I don't. Don't mention the money came from him, okay? She doesn't need to know.
Who is this guy? What just happened?
Nothing happened, Ed. You want to leave my filthy, cockroach-infested life, so get out.
Who the hell is he?
He's the froth in the corner of your mouth that forms when you eat a shit sandwich.
So I need to ask her who he is?
You're not listening. We're not talking about this. Make like the chief of the birds and get the flock out of here.
If you are protecting this man...
Protecting? You're talking about her. You think I... Don't worry another second about that. Big Daddy. I'm sure she'll never meet him. I told her why. I made sure he never... Leave. Take that oversight with you and get out.
You know, when I walked in here, I wanted nothing else than to leave, but...
Yes, but take yours out of my life. Since it's attached to your nose, you'll be doing us both a favor.
As part of my training in seminary, I completed several courses for counseling.
With 0 classes about how to segue into an awkward conversation. But I know paying attention in the course that taught you how to look good on TV has done a lot for your bank account. Look, you have what you came for, Ed. Chalk up another W for the Edster and go make your daughter happy.
You're right. I'm not good at this. I'm good with big crowds, not one-on-one, but I feel I need to know what happened.
Do you? I feel you should leave. What do you think the local police are going to feel when they get a call in the middle of Christmas dinner with their families to come here and talk to you?
Okay. Then let me do some good with all my education and fame and wealth.
Is that your way of asking to borrow my phone so Jarvis can bring the car around?
If this is how you talk to her, I hope you understand why she left you. I am direct by nature because I like to be clear. That's the reason I'm told I come off as calloused and uncaring to people in my personal life. And for years, that has included you. You and I will never be close, but I'm not a heartless monster, and you know it. The charities and outreach are all done in sincerity. I do that because I genuinely like helping people. I don't want to stay here a minute longer, but I do want to continue to build on the trust we've developed, as thin as it may feel now, and at least let you talk it out. You never know how you will feel when it is over until it is over.
So what, I lie down on the couch now?
Do whatever you want. It's your house.
Is kicking you out still an option?
It's your house. But if this is affecting your relationships with others, don't you at least want to talk about it?
You remember this stays in this room. You've no idea.
It will. Promise to God.
God. I call him Uncle Donnie because he's a childhood friend of my dad. They grew up together and were best friends ever since I was a kid. I don't like him. He's a dorky know-it-all with no social skills. My dad is one of his only friends because he annoys the hell out of everyone. Lucky for me, I only ever saw him a couple times a year as a kid because he was constantly moving around. Add bread to both sides. That's the recipe for a shit sandwich.
I'll agree that that's the background on him, but that's not the story.
Now, I don't ever see him again because no one can make me. You're right, Ed. I do feel better.
How old were you the last time you saw him?
16.
Why was that the last time?
Would you look at the time? You know, you have church in the morning and it's getting
2
late.
in the afternoon.
Anyway, I need to run to the grocery store, pick up flour.
Dev, you know they're closed on Christmas.
You're right. I'm at 7-Eleven.
Devlin Mallory! I can't make you tell me. I can't. So I will have to ask you to trust me.
It's summer. We go visit him in some backwater in West Virginia. His place is too small for the 6 of us to sleep. So for some reason, he joins us at the hotel. We determined 5 of us don't fit in our room. And since I tolerate him best of all the boys, I end up in the second room with him in the other bed. Not happy about it, but I figure we'll only be there to sleep. So I won't have to deal with him.
I take it you were out for dinner then?
Yeah. We have steak that night. I remember too vividly. He talked out his ass about the tongs on the fork should be angled instead of straight, and how we need to swirl the Chardonnay in the glass before he drank it for maximum flavor. I guess he should check his shoes for bullshit too. He's so boorish. If he had stopped talking that night, I would have been able to hear God roll his eyes. Anyway, he takes forever to finish eating. So we get back to the hotel pretty late. I'm exhausted. I basically just climb into bed and roll my back to him so he stops talking. It takes too long to settle, and finally the lights go out. You're starting to look a little green there, Ed. I don't have any plastic covers, or I'd ask you to sit.
Just give me a moment. Amen. Thank you. I know.
You don't need to apologize. I've been living with this for 10 years. Because of this, I have trouble getting to sleep most nights. I have a short fuse, especially with men. I barely have to think about that night, and I get so destructively angry. I get mad at myself for not doing something. I get mad at him for... After a few minutes in the dark, he gets out of bed. He gets into bed behind me. Every time I think about it, I want to put my elbow in his guts till he pukes. And that time and place, I don't do anything. I freeze. I'm really confused because nothing in my life has prepared me to be someone's prey. I gotta tell you, Ed, I spent a lot of nights dreaming up ways to hurt him. Cursing God for not protecting me, and
I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm beginning to understand why you would. This isn't
the sort of confession you normally get. The ones you get each week are general. This is about as personal as it gets. So all I can do is tense up. When he puts his arm around me, he reaches into my shorts and starts touching me. I have no experience with people doing that. My mind is freaking out. even though my body is barely moving. After a minute or two of him stroking me, he whispers in my ear, "You're going to make a woman very happy someday." At that point, my legs start to work again, and I start swinging away from him as I say I have to use the bathroom. I must have spent hours in that bathroom. I can thank God he was drinking, because he did fall asleep.
Didn't you go to your parents? What did they do?
I don't know why I didn't tell them right away, but I didn't. The next morning, I put a sweatpants on over my shorts. He surprises the rest of us by suggesting we go to church. He never goes to church and is not a member of one, so no one else can figure it out, but he insists. I have nothing else to put on, so... Long story short, 90 minutes later, I find myself on my knees in front of a small congregation of people who all know each other, dressed in sweatpants and a sweatshirt in July, taking communion. It was humiliating to be paraded in front of the church like that, because he felt guilt, I guess. I've been wearing sweat clothes since.
Wearing shorts and a tank top in December. I just don't know what to say.
Goodbye would be an excellent start. I need to wash my mouth out with soap and bleach my genitals again after going back through all that.
I'm just going to start by saying thank you for trusting me and making an effort to protect.
I always did.
Yes, you did. Did you ever go to the police?
No. For years after the incident, I was too embarrassed. When I finally told my family, they never brought it up.
The governor signed some new legislation into law last month, extending the statute of limitations for reporting.
It only applies to abuse happening after the law takes effect. All I can do is replay it over and over in my head. Now, I have no one to distract me.
Mr. Kemp, I was so pleased when you called to schedule a meeting. Please, come in, sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Aldwell. I have this for you.
Oh, thank you. The mail, and please, call me Dolian.
Likewise, call me Durrant. I appreciate you taking the time to see me on such short notice. I volunteered to bring you that correspondence. I'm afraid I have something rather unpleasant to discuss with you. I'm not happy with my mother's care.
I don't understand. We hold ourselves to the highest standards here at the lake house. I'm sure correction can be made. What part of her care is not meeting your standards?
The one-to-one care with your staff is very concerning.
Durant, I can assure you that all staff that work here are handpicked by the board, which includes me, from the best graduates we can find, from the best universities in the state. I'm very confident that we...
Dolian, I will stop you there. We have a complaint about one person in particular, Brone Darvel. We believe he should be removed from employment here.
That's a very specific request. I must ask why.
Certainly. About a month ago, Mother began to act in a manner which is rather unusual for her.
Your mother suffers from vascular dementia. We may not yet be fully aware of all of her symptoms.
While that may be true, her behavior...
I can assure you that your mother is being well cared for. The best clinician I have on staff has been working to narrow the
Symptoms and diagnoses aside, I still have a legitimate complaint for you to hear. You noticed the mother was decidedly more withdrawn, irritable, and sad. It signaled to us there was something wrong. Turns out Mr. Darvel is the cause.
And how on earth did you come to that conclusion?
Investigation.
Durant, if you needed an investigation of one of our caregivers, I personally...
I have no doubt your dedication to your clients would have led to a full investigation. We were initially trying to discern if our visits were the root cause of the change in behavior. We thought maybe coming more or less often would help revert Mother back to her previous state. When that didn't work, we thought perhaps our visits were the very thing aggravating her. It was for that reason that we...
I want to assure you that our top clinician screens all of our staff once a year for signs of distress or burnout. I have to believe that any concerns about Mr. Darvel would have already come to my attention.
I'd like to point out that Mr. Darvel has only been here for 8 months. Is it possible he is not yet due for an evaluation?
Well, the first screening occurs prior to the first day, so no. I'll look up that report right now for you.
Thank you. I'm most curious to know the results of that screening.
So he did not go through the upfront screening because Dr. Yang was on maternity leave at the time he was hired.
Then I will give you the benefit of the doubt that this was simply an anomaly, and that by dismissing him and pressing charges...
Wait, you want us to press charges because your mother is experiencing some symptoms of distress?
I think you will find that request warranted if you just...
Darrent, I always have time to discuss concerns regarding any concerned family member, especially one that has provided so generously for the care of their loved ones as you have. But besides quality staffing being difficult to come by, the reputation of this facility...
I am giving you an opportunity to save the reputation of this facility. I instructed my lawyer to do the same. You and I have both put a lot of effort and money into this institution.
You mentioned investigation. For what exactly am I to be firing and filing charges against Mr. Darvel?
Give me just a moment. As I was trying to say earlier, my family and I thought we might be the cause of the distress we saw in Mother. So we installed a discreet wireless camera in Mother's room. We made sure it faced in a direction that would allow for her privacy. Still see most of the activity in the room. We did not notify you, as we sincerely did not believe the cause to be related to her care. Quite the contrary, we expected to see her improve once we left. Instead, we saw this. There he is, coming into the room, looking around to make sure they are alone. He turns slightly to say toward the door. Now, my mother only ever listened to classical music, yet he says, you must do this every time to drown out the noise of her protests. As soon as the music begins. Now all pretense is gone. Being stuck in the wheelchair, all she can do is object. Looks like he has done this several times, knowing how she'll react. Notice how the music almost completely drowns out her cries for help. I am sure you get the point. There's no clinician in the world who would call that anything other than rape and elder abuse.
Oh God, I think I'm gonna be sick.
Julian, this happened yesterday. You noticed the change in Mother weeks ago.
I'm sorry. I can't.
You don't need to be sorry.
I can't. Miss Oliver, please contact Mr. Darville and let him know that we are making changes to the schedule and he is not to report today. Thank you.
Smart. Keeping the idea of investigation secret to avoid interference. Of course, this is your facility to run. If I may, I would look into other individuals under his care and have Dr. Yang check them for signs of distress as well.
I can't.
Want to assign the task to a shift supervisor? That hardly seems appropriate given the magnitude. I understand this is a horrible realization for you. If you like, I will assist the staff in the investigation.
You can't.
You're quite right. I would not be able to remain objective. Sounds like we need to move to involve the state and the police at this stage to make sure nothing is overlooked.
No, Durant, we do not need to involve them.
Why on earth not?
Well, that would ruin everything. I've worked too hard, both on the reputation of this sanctuary of respite and my own career. If this gets reported, it will ruin me. It will ruin my life's work. All of this will all be meaningless. We absolutely have to address it. We will put him on administrative leave and order therapy. Let's face it, that's all the court is going to do. We'll make sure he never goes near the residence he currently assists. And
I can't believe what I'm hearing. That man committed felony sexual assault, and you're ready to cover it up with a throw rug like a persistent stain.
it is your word against mine if I can convince them that video was doctored.
Tell me, would it be different if it was your mother? Or your sister or your daughter? This man has displayed calculated predatory behavior for almost a month toward at least one of the patients whose care has been entrusted to you. You owe it to her and to every other patient to fire him now and have his name dragged through the mud on the way to prison, where, yes, he will receive court-ordered therapy, away from everyone he has harmed.
Durant, please listen to me.
You should check your mail. Sorry I couldn't trust you to do the right thing.
Durant, I am doing the right thing. I think once you have some time to think about it, you will agree that we don't want to overreact. I will make it up to your mother and the other residents and...
Not acceptable.
Then we fire him and offer to pay for therapy.
So we can go to another facility and do the same thing. Having worked here will help him get another job as long as nothing bad is said about him.
I won't let this ruin me. Won't let this ruin this fine institution that we have.
Miss Oliver, please send in our guests. You're kidding yourself if you think this is an isolated incident.
It is personal to you now, but think of how many residents and how many shareholders...
Mr. Doling and Allwell, you're under arrest for refusing to report known or suspected sexual abuse of the elderly. Anything you say...
I know my rights. So this is your big move? You know I have the best lawyers in the state on retainer. I'll be out of prison before...
This facility has the best lawyers in the state. And you didn't read your mail. Remember, I introduced you to the best lawyers in the state for the well-being of this institution. Now that you are acting outside its best interests, I have redirected them to the case against Mr. Darville and you in the event that you did not do the right thing.
Sexual harassment. Noun. Unwelcome sexual advances made by an employer or a superior, especially when compliance is a condition of continued employment or advancement.
They said there would be consequences.
Sexual abuse. Noun. Rape,
sexual assault, sexual molestation.
I was told not to talk about it.
Rape, noun, unlawful sexual intercourse or any other sexual penetration of the vagina, anus, or mouth of another person with or without force by sex organ, other body part, or foreign object without the consent of the victim.
Rape, verb, to commit the crimes just mentioned.
I was made to feel that being a party girl meant I deserved it.
Sexual assault can be 1. Penetration of a body part by another body part, or penetration of a body part by an object.
We need to make it stop.
2. Contact with genitalia, breast, buttocks, or other intimate body parts.
Sometimes I hate myself.
They said it didn't count because I was queer.
Sexual molestation. Verb. To make indecent sexual advances towards another or to assault them sexually.
Whether through deception, threats, or violence, roughly 1 in every 192 people alive today find themselves in exploitative situations that they cannot leave.
I became dependent and scared to leave.
Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide, including the United States.
Please make it stop.
It can happen in any community, and victims can be any age, race, gender, or nationality.
Believe me.
And now, the news. A 29-year-old woman gave birth to a baby boy at a healthcare facility in Phoenix, Arizona. The woman had been in a vegetative state since nearly drowning at the age of 3, and staff was not even aware she was pregnant. Weeks later, police arrested one of her caregivers, a 36-year-old man, after DNA test matched him to the child and charged him with 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of vulnerable adult abuse. He has pleaded not guilty.
I couldn't stop him.
International human trafficking ring busted in the upstate.
If you see something suspicious, you must report it.
100 plus minors rescued in child sex trafficking op.
Stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves.
Federal report. Sexual abuse occurred at a facility for the cognitively impaired.
They did it knowing we couldn't defend ourselves.
Venezuela's female refugees trafficked at a higher rate amid political crisis.
Change hearts, change laws, change lives.
Sick, dying, and raped in America's nursing homes.
They took my dignity.
1 in 5 college women will be sexually assaulted this year unless something changes. Bishop, on trial for sexual abuse, leaves judge's chambers with a smile on his face.
Tell everyone who abuses others their time is up.
Nearly 1.5 Nepalese people at risk of human trafficking.
Make your thoughts and efforts global.
The twisted flight paths of Global Girl and the Lolita Express.
It's never too late to tell someone.
93-year-old reportedly sexual assaulted in a nursing home, where rape was recorded on camera.
It is real, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Nearly 800 accuse Boy Scouts of failing to protect them from sexual abuse as new lawsuit is filed.
Say it loud enough for everyone to hear.
Loophole in law allows nursing home sex offenders to go undetected.
Who is responsible for protecting me?
U.S. Ambassador visits Bangladesh to monitor and combat human trafficking.
We have to make it stop.
Sexual abuse in hospitals and nursing homes affects patients of all ages. West African slavery lives on, 400 years after the transatlantic trade began.
History can repeat itself, or we can make it remain in the past.
The International Labor Organization says forced labor illegally generates $150 billion a year. 100 billion of that is from commercial sexual exploitation. The other 50 billion comes from other exploitation, such as domestic work, agriculture, and child labor.
Please make it stop.
Make it stop.
It is real, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Hold everyone accountable.
Do as much as you can. Encourage others.
Demand justice.
You are allowed to tell your story.
Make it safe for survivors to tell their stories.
Advocate for new laws and prosecution of criminal abuse.
It's never too late to tell your story.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Everyone, thank you so very much for joining us for U2, scenes that reflect stories of abuse, strength, and reflection in the era of Me Too. We just want to thank all of you for joining us. And if you are interested in contributing to the Indiegogo campaign to pay our actors, you can do so by going to the link that is at the bottom of your screen, igg.me/@/U22021. And you can also donate to Women Against Abuse. It is a nonprofit organization that based in Philadelphia that is helping to prevent and help victims of abuse. Now we're going to be starting a talkback session with our cast. If you have any statements or anything that you would like to throw into the comment section, please do so. And we're bringing our cast on screen now. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. And let's welcome our cast and crew.
Hey guys.
Hello. Hello.
Oh.
So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to throw them into the comment section here on YouTube, and we'll just bring everyone on screen here. And I'm trying to get our author into the screen right now because apparently he ignored the link that I sent him earlier.
And that surprises us how.
I don't care about your ways. You do it my way.
Whoever doesn't have your headphones plugged in, plug in your headphones or mute your mic whenever you're not talking.
That was my terrible echo.
All right.
I just want to say that everyone is fabulous and did such a wonderful job. Like, it's just, oh, my heart is full. That's all I gotta say.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah. And hi everyone, I'm Dan. I was the producer for the show. I just want to thank all of the actors for being a part of this, for being a major portion of this show, and really putting in amazing performances. And you're all just brilliant. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here and making this happen. Also, thank you to our director, Kristina Coia, who is insisting on remaining off camera at the moment, and our author, Barrett Rhoads, who is having technical difficulties because he cannot figure out how to click on the link. But he's in his mid-40s now and thus is incredibly old. So,
Hey, careful, Dan.
Rude.
Ken, I didn't say how old you are.
Rude.
Yeah, but I was his student teacher, so, you know.
See, you just outed yourself on that. So our first question that we're bringing up right now is I'm gonna throw this into a window on screen. So bear with me 1 second. How did hearing about alternate experiences change your perspective of hashtag #MeToo? And whoever wants to take this, I will make you the main window, and we can even just go around.
Can I raise my hand? Is that okay?
I know we're doing.
All right, Melanie, go ahead.
I don't know that I can exactly say it fully changed my perspective in the sense of, I've been following the Me Too movement since it started. But this gave new stories that I had never heard before and made me rethink a whole lot of scenarios. When it came to Me Too isn't just for women. This happens to everybody. And so it really opened my eyes here, hearing some of the other stories, because I didn't get to see them in rehearsals and stuff. And so it really, I think, just showed me that it's not just, what we picture. It's so much more that happens to people.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would love from the bottom of my heart to say that I was surprised by any of these stories. And the fact is, I wasn't. However, that doesn't mean that these stories weren't important to hear, or that they weren't shocking or heart-wrenching. I've been on the forefront of this movement for a long, long time, even before hashtag #MeToo was even a thing. I've always been an advocate for women's rights. I've always been an advocate for intimate partner violence. And I think what the Me Too movement allows for is the stories to be told in a way that says, hey, we're here. It's time for you to join the conversation. It's time for you, the person who didn't necessarily know that these stories were even in existence, to become aware of and to help with, because we can't do it alone. Yeah.
And our author has just joined us.
Yay. Hello.
All right. Throwing in another question, unless anybody else has an answer to the first, has their own answer to the first one. No. All right. So, why do you think people are resistant to accept the hashtag #MeToo movement even now? May.
I feel my chair just went down. I feel that I think it makes it too real, too in their face, to there a lot of people I know, they're used to just being like hearing stories, but seeing people on social media talking about it, people that they know, people that they never would have a thought of having a situation, throwing up that hashtag, I think just makes it too real for them to process, if that makes any sense. A lot of people that I've run into that they mean well, but they don't realize just how diverse the Me Too movement is, and that it's not just for women, that it happens through all age groups, all ethnicities, all genders, all sexualities. And I guess it's just, I feel like it's just, they don't want to realize just how in their face it actually is now.
Anybody else with that? Oh, Katie Bourbon, because there's multiple Katies.
There are two of us. I feel like anytime there is a hashtag, a label like that, there is some backlash to when things are popular, and you're jumping on the bandwagon, you're saying, me too. And that's just when you have a hashtag name. But I feel like people will always be hesitant because of the accountability factor. You know, there might be an awkward moment in someone's past where they have to own up that they did something, or they witnessed something, or they laughed at something that they shouldn't have laughed at. That was their friend did something horrible to a person, and they need to own up to that. They need to call it what it was, and to have that awkward conversation when it occurs. And yeah, just owning long history and owning short history. You know, it's the same when, you know, as a white feminist, when I read into my own history and realize how complicit we were in keeping down women of color. And it's just it's getting the intersectional aspect back into feminism, and that is definitely going to help us in the Me Too, because it's not enough to save one flavor of woman, one flavor of abuse. You know, there's abuse of power, there's sexual abuse of power, and we all need to stand up for it, or it'll run over everyone.
Anyone else? Ken, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, this whole show was really interesting to me just because as a white man, white straight man, it impacts everybody. And I don't think I really knew how much it would have impacted me until, you know, I had seen it, you know, kind of seen it firsthand, and then realized that, you know, I want to say there's not a person out there who has either not personally been impacted or has a, you know, not even a 6 shades of, but, you know, almost a second shade, you know, knows somebody directly who was, you know, who was impacted by the movement or by some type of abuse, and just either never talked about it or didn't realize it at times, or, you know, whatever. But we've all been impacted. And I think that the movement, the more that we talk about it and the more that people are unafraid to talk about it, I think the less politicized and the more out there it can become. And that's the only way that there's going to be any kind of change.
Melanie, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm a talkative human being. But I think, you know, kind of bouncing off of what Katie said, it's a level of uncomfortable, but I also think it's a level of shame when it comes to recognizing that, you know, you either know somebody who's done something and you feel ashamed that you didn't do anything, so you just feel like denying it is better, or ashamed that they did, you know, yourself did something, and again, you don't want to admit that because it's shameful, so you just pretend that the movement is not real or, you know, worth the time, because that means that you have to own up to it. And I think it's just kind of a level of shame that keeps people from accepting that this is real and people need help.
Great. Barrett, our author, go ahead.
So for me, one of the reasons for writing the show in the first place was to make sure that the conversation didn't go stale, the conversation didn't stop. One of the things about people being resistant is that it's real easy to be resistant when it's online, to be resistant when it's not personal to them, or it's not something that they have to be directly involved in. I wanted to make the conversation a little more uncomfortable and a little closer and a little more in people's faces, just because people are resistant, because people deny it, because people are in that place of shame and don't want to talk about it.
New question. Why do you think people are often reluctant to or unable to report their abuses? Oh, wow, so many hands. Mira, new speaker. Go ahead.
I mean, I think we see some examples of it in this play itself. There's so many institutional barriers, like to people not being believed, not getting justice. There's a phrase re-traumatizing that happens to people sometimes when they try to go forward to authorities and tell their story and are not treated with compassion, and they have to relive it in a system that isn't always like trained to deal with that, and then having to go through arduous processes and then not getting justice half the time. Like there's a, you know, for all that people talk about how terrible this kind of crime is, the amount of conviction rates are astonishingly low, and very few people get, you know, justice. And then there's also the public shame, which is still a huge issue, and you know, fear of losing work or other sorts of things, fear of like interpersonal shaming, and then like we need better ability to help care for people so that they feel able to tell the stories that they want to, because that's also a very difficult process. And then yeah, like we see examples like in my scene, you know, she tells the story and she still doesn't get justice because of, you know, these other issues.
Anyone else want to share? May, go ahead.
I'm about to be real personal, so I apologize in advance. So I feel like it's what's considered either like cultural or society norms or just environmental norms. In my case, you know, when it came to my assailant, that's what I'm going to call him, it was someone in my church family. And, you know, you're terrified to go against someone who is such an upstanding person or seen as like a pillar of the community or stuff like that. And if you even speak up, then you're outcast, like you're socially outcast and you have no foundation or anything like that anymore. And I just feel like, you know, instead of just being so quick to cast aside someone who's speaking up about something that happened to them, you know, despite this person's so, you know, their public reputation, you know, that they're so, you know, well known for A, B, and C, you know, just take into account that no one's infallible, like no one's perfect, and, you know, throw away the thoughts of like, well, this person's just too good and this person we don't know anything about, like why should we believe them? So I just feel like it's just like environmental causes too that just cause people to be afraid after seeing things that have happened in the past with people that get shunned from their community and stuff like that.
Melanie again.
Sorry. I
Don't
think it
apologize,
also,
Jesus.
it's super obvious also in the scene about the retirement home, yeah, the extra help and everything, and that you know, he tells him that this is happening, and he just says, well, I will give him paid leave. You know, we know a lot of people know that if they bring it up, if they talk to somebody, if they go to authorities or anything, that nothing's going to happen. No one's tried hard enough to make things happen to people who assault. And so it just kind of becomes, well, then why bother? And it also is, yeah, complete fear. You know, if it's somebody your family knew, you know, your family could not believe you, and that's your family. You know, I could also get a little personal in the fact that one of my assailants was a friend of mine, and I told another friend, and she told me I was being dramatic, and she told me that it wasn't worth talking about, and I should just forget that it happened. And you know, people just kind of tell you to shut up, and I think people just don't do that. They don't want to relive it, and they don't want to, you know, feel that even the people that should be their support system don't care.
Oh, all right. Anyone else on that? Katie, Bourbon.
I just had the thought that there's the provability factor, and that's not a word, but you know, there's always the, you know, they want to prove it. How can you prove it? Did you get a rape kit? And you know, your brain kind of goes back to like, what if someone was murdered in broad daylight and there was a video of it that the world saw. It took a year for that person to go to trial. Oh wait, that actually happened. That is the story of George of the murder of George Floyd, and like that's what happens with murder. Like we need a serious overhaul of the justice system. We need a serious overhaul of a lot of things because yes, there is the shame. There's the shame. There's the blame. There's the having to prove it. But even when you can prove things, sometimes like just it doesn't go anywhere. And that's terrible. I thought I had more to that. Apparently I didn't. That's where my brain stopped.
It's all right. Anyone else have any thoughts on that, or moving on to the next, possibly last question? All right, here's a real lighthearted one then. How can we move the hashtag #MeToo movement forward? Is there, and the second part of that, is there enough diversity and inclusion in the movement, or do we still have room to grow? I want everyone to take a round of that. So starting in our lower left-hand corner, Katie Hauser, who is voguing right now. Katie is also muted. There we go. There we go.
I was just saying I always vote for Me Too. So I want to address the second half of that question. No, there is not enough diversity. Point blank, straight up. How many people know about what's happening in the South Sudan right now?
Yeah.
And that's probably not a lot. So basically, I looked it up. In the time that we have even done this, about 224 cases of sexual violence, including sex trafficking, have occurred in probably the time that we've been speaking. About 1,400 cases of potential victims being trafficked have occurred. And to me, the fact that we don't know about that is not like front page news is astonishing to me. And the fact that it's not is because it's happening in the Sudan. So I feel like we hear a lot about white women when it comes to the Me Too movement. We hear a lot about struggle in workplace environments, in American rape situations, but I feel like we don't address the global impact of what sexual violence has on the entire world, and I think it expands so much farther than we even think, including India, including so many places that we just need to expand our idea of what violence against women even means. And in terms of moving forward, I think it comes down to that. Let's expand our empathy, our compassion, our understanding of what it means to affect change globally, not just locally. And if it has to start small, then yes, but I feel that the movement as it is now does not encompass everything that it needs to. So, yeah.
Barrett, let's go to you.
I believe that it's painfully underrepresentative of just how bad things are. When I was researching this, I spent a lot of time trying to make it honest, because I'm not telling my story. I'm not telling anyone's story, really. I was trying to make stories that would be relatable. Unfortunately, I was really good at it, from what I've been told. But at the same time, that was the point. It was to start conversations. And in doing the research, I read a lot of really upsetting things. And like she just said, you really only have to look for a minute online to find it. The violence in Sudan, but there's political and war-related violence in a lot of countries. There was a lot in the news a couple years back about the mutilation of female genitalia by religious zealots. And I don't want to specifically mention where or who, because I don't want it to taint people's opinions of the entire religion as a whole. But the point is that there's a lot of things that happen that don't get reported in American news media and don't get represented in this because of access. It's just access. There's been constant war on the African continent, say, since the end of World War II, but it doesn't get reported in the news nearly as often as it would if it was in a country a lot closer to us, or a country that was more financially bound to us, or was considered an industrialized nation versus a developing nation. All those places still exist. All those places still have this kind of abuse happening rampantly in all those places. Still need everyone to think globally and to put any effort they can into keeping the conversation expanding, not just going, but making it bigger.
Yes, Katie again.
Sorry, last thought. I think a huge thing that can help this movement grow is let's start believing women, all women, everyone, every person who comes forward and tells their story. And I think part of this was it's always okay to tell your story. You can come forward if you're in a safe space to. And I think it's also on the onus of people who are receiving these stories to absorb them without judgment and absorb them without fear. Is really important. It's just to say, yes, I hear you. I see you. You are valid. I see your story. I see your struggle. And I feel like if we had more people who are willing to accept the stories of people who are victims and or survivors of sexual abuse, will make the difference.
All right. We just also got Alec. I was just corrected in the comments that it's Ake and not Ake. I've been saying Ake for like a year whenever I read his name in YouTube comments, but welcome him. He was our Officer Manny. Katie Bourbon, let's go to your thoughts real quick on how we can move the hashtag #MeToo movement forward.
Everybody on the bus, basically. I mean, it's got to be a movement. It's got to move. And we have to have everyone. Like, there should be no one publicly opposing this, at least. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people saying behind closed doors, behind drugs slipped in drinks. But there should be no one publicly, like, what? What could you possibly say against, hey, don't rape us? I know there's plenty of people that do find somehow to have a rebuttal to this, but it's sick and stupid. But we need to, as we're telling our stories, as we're listing individuals to tell stories, as we're sharing, we need to make sure that there is space in that room for everyone, cis, color, ability, age, everything, every demographic, every story. We need to be aware of every avenue, and it is not a female issue in that it's not just a victim issue or survivor issue. It is the people, the perpetrators need to know. They need to get them on board as well. You know, stopping rape, you gotta teach people not to rape, not just how not to get raped. And in my personal, I had a male friend whose girlfriend would raise a hand to him. And it took me looking him dead in the eye and saying, how would you feel if my boyfriend was treating me the way your girlfriend is treating you? And that, it took that moment for him to realize that it was wrong. So just having the accessibility, having the voices, because there are still people out there, apparently, that don't even know some things are wrong. They get that weird feeling and they can't really describe that feeling. They just know that it feels weird. And we need the emotional language. We need the availability to come to terms with what's going on and get together and get moving and get this in the past.
Hi, everyone. I think to move the Me Too movement forward, I think it's important to keep sharing these stories. I think that stories, unfortunately, because a lot of people, want to stay in this state of denial that it's not something that happens close to them or, with people that they know. And so the more sharing of stories in all medium formats, radio, TV, YouTube, social media, the better. I think that's very important. And then next, changing the laws and education, making sure that there are programs starting from middle school that educate kids about all of this, about consent, about what is abuse and what kinds of abuse exist in all of these things, and laws. And what I mean by changing the laws is that, it starts as simple as choosing choosing representatives and people who will go to governors, etc., who are going to create legislation that will make sure that perpetrators of these kinds of abuse, that there are real consequences for these types of actions, so as to hopefully deter and lower these amounts of abuses to happen. And also making sure that there are much bigger consequences for these crimes, because a lot of the times, they're almost like slap on the wrists in many places. And so we need to fight harder for better representatives, to create better legislation and consequences that stick and all of these things. And we need to do that now.
Absolutely. Also, Jacqueline, I think this was the first time you've spoken in the Q&A tonight.
Yes, it is.
but you're absolutely right, because just the Brock Peters situation of he was given a slap on the wrist because he had a big swimming career ahead of him. So, Alec, we're going to jump over to you real quick and have your thoughts on the answer to this question of how we can move the Me Too movement forward, and is there enough diversity and inclusion in the movement, or do we still have room to grow?
I believe that there's definitely still room to grow. There's more people should come forward, more people should tell their stories, and again, like everybody else has said, new legislation, new laws, that's what we need to continue moving this forward.
Excellent. Mira.
I totally agree with what Jacqueline was saying. I was also going to talk about moving the movement forward with education and legislation. And with education, we need to start very young. I mean, like kindergarten, because consent exists in so many areas of life, and teaching people from a young age to respect to respect consent and to understand their own and other people's right to bodily autonomy is extremely important. And it's something that we don't really have right now, even to something as simple as like asking permission before touching someone at all, just like training it into people from a young age. And can be so important. And then for, you know, the problems that exist right now, we need better support for survivors. We need better things in the justice system. And we need actual consequences. We need people not to be re-traumatized by the experience of telling their stories. And for the second question about diversity, we absolutely need more diversity and inclusion in the movement, because this is a very intersectional issue, and other areas of structural inequalities and oppression add on to this, compound this issue and the problems of getting justice afterwards. And so by addressing those issues, that fight will also help this. Like, you know, trans women, especially trans women of color, are some of the most victimized. And there is a rising transphobia that exists in many places in the world. The UK right now has it really bad. But there's this fear culture about, you know, but it's the exact opposite. You know, and so, you know, their non-cis people are at huge risk. And by fighting for like the trans rights movement and trans justice, that can also help this issue. Similarly, racial justice, fighting for racial justice can help this issue. Fighting for reproductive justice, just in general, can help this issue. Fighting for women's rights and against sexism, like all these different areas of oppression, they all compound this. And by fighting for those politically and legally, then we can help with remove some of the barriers and weights that make this an even more burdensome thing than it is. And that, compounded with education, are steps that can be taken to make the movement more inclusive and further the fight toward justice and to making this type of crime much less prevalent than it is, I hope.
Well said, Mira. And let's also welcome Paula K. Long, who just was able to join us. She was Femi. I'm sorry. Excuse me. She was Opal in our second scene, and it looks like her screen is freezing, so I'm not actually able to get her up on for everybody. But as we continue, let's jump up to Mayhemmer and see what May has to say.
I feel, I mean, everybody touched some really valid points, and I'm over here like, what am I going to say? But I think we also need to take a look at our own like cultural norms as well, and some deep-rooted issues that we have within our own cultural groups to help make a lot of things not be considered normal. I just saw a post today that I heard a lot in my youth was like, you know, calling little girls fast. You know, why do little girls have to be fast? Why can't there be predators? You know, so, you know, it's all about breaking out of some of these cultural norms and making a difference within our own community as well to help make things grow more and to have more people feel less afraid to speak up about any sort of injustice that happens to them.
Let's go back to Melanie and Nathaniel's sideburns. No, I want to talk to Nathaniel's sideburns. What do Nathaniel's sideburns have to feel about this?
They're very intense about this subject.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the points on this question have really been hit pretty hard at this point. Like I don't really have a lot to add that hasn't been said already. I do think, and someone may have mentioned something related to this. I really think we need to be just one additional thing that needs to be done is we really need to be pushing for more funding for investigating sexual assault crimes, because I mean you can look at my mother's a big fan of Law and Order, and so for a long time I've been following not necessarily intentionally the career of Mariska Hargitay, who spends like all of her money trying to help get rape kits processed. And why is this like random celebrity doing this when this needs to be something that happens every time? Like, we can't have that kind of backlog going on in terms of the investigation process for sexual assaults. It's insane. So on top of everything else that everyone has said, something needs to be done about the way that we handle the money related to getting investigations underway.
And then I feel like, again, also everything I'm going to say is just going to backpack off of everybody. But, it's brought up as education before. It's teaching sex ed and actually telling the truth in sex ed will make a difference, but also teaching consent in sex ed is making, once people are learning about their bodies and everything, once that's becoming more of a thing, is the moment consent should be talked about. It, once it can be understood, it should be talked about. But also is, I think some people think that the only situation for Me Too is rape. And the spectrum of what can happen to somebody and what counts as assault and harassment and all this different stuff for all genders, all sexualities, all races, it is that, people will think, oh, well, I eventually said yes, even though I didn't want to be doing it. It's like, well, that counts in that it wasn't okay. You shouldn't be being manipulated doesn't mean that it's your fault. It's teaching that the scenario isn't just I was, violently assaulted. It should be that, yeah, even the littlest thing that we think is like, well, didn't I let that happen? No, we can teach more about what situations still aren't okay that people are like, I thought it was. No, it's still not. It's teaching that it's not just one big event, is that it's so many little events as well.
And Katie again. Katie, unmute yourself.
I don't want to be heard. Sorry. To piggyback off of what Melanie was saying, if I had to tell the amount of times that I get sexually harassed, would probably be 5 out of 7 days. So I live and work in New York City, and I'm on the train, and the amount of times I either get ogled, followed, catcalled, physically assaulted, which I have been many times on the train, it's staggering. So it's not just big things, it's little things, it's daily things. And that kind of daily, I guess assault is the best word for it, is more pervasive than you think it is. And which just lets you know how large and culturally pervasive this kind of issue is. And it, again, going back to education, consent is a very, very easy concept. 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds can understand the idea of no and yes. And when someone says no, that's it, boundary. So I think it comes down to, as much as we can talk, like all of these big issues are huge and wonderful. And yes, we need to change legislation. We need to talk about how it evolves culturally, but also we need to think about the micro and how are you raising your children, your nieces, nephews, the people that are around you, even the adults. You can check them and be like, hey, that's a problematic thing. It begins culturally and expands from there. So just to put that out there, like there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not sexually harassed. Facts.
Anybody else have any final thoughts? Paula keeps trying to join us, but the system keeps booting her out.
Yeah, that was happening to me earlier. Thanks for making fun of me, Dan.
No, it's just because your phone sucks. That's all it is, Barrett.
Well, there was
Everyone
one
else
other thing
has
I wanted to add
appropriate
to
technology.
that, and I'll be quick. The other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up is that there are quite a few people that really can't speak up for themselves, and I touch on it in the show, but it's important to note that there are people that are not physically or mentally able to stand up for themselves, and there are plenty of people that could use more oversight from the government, from people that are responsible for this type of oversight, to advocate for them, to watchdog for them, and to make sure that our most vulnerable folks are the ones that get the most attention. And that could be someone who's not able, that could be someone who is not always advocated for because of their color, their gender, their sexuality, or whatever. Just throwing that out there too.
Katie, go ahead.
I would like to add.
Oh, go ahead, Alec.
I was going to say I would like to add one of the things that I believe would sincerely help in this effort would be education for police. That's something that I believe truly needs to be looked at more closely.
Absolutely. Paula, before the system decides to try to kick you off again, do you have anything? Oh no. I kind of want to laugh, but this is a terrible thing. It's dark laughter. Anybody else? Katie, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I know we, colloquially call it sexual abuse, but I think everyone understands that it's, it's not about sex, it's about power. And, all of these stories and all of the stories you hear, like it's very much about a person exacting their power over another person. It's an imbalance of power. And in the typed in the private chat, I was reminded of, like it happening a lot more often when I was younger and in less of a position of power. And now that I'm a grown ass woman that's confident, people tend to leave me alone, except when I was at work, when I was behind a counter, when someone knew that I couldn't say everything that I wanted to say in that moment. And that's when people would choose to use certain phrases, to say certain things to me, because they knew that they could exact power over me. And looking at the Renaissance Fair, I've talked to a few people, a few ladies that do independent acts. One is, and they're in some similar ages, but one is a warrior. She wears a metal breastplate and she juggles fire, and dudes don't really mess with her. And there is another who looks very childlike. She has a high voice. They both they're both similarly covered, but one is much more childlike, and she gets way more horrible things said to her. And yeah, and I think police education would definitely benefit us in general. But yeah, just the better education for sex education, so we understand the balances of power and understand that that's not okay to do to someone.
Well said. I have one final question for all of you. if there is one thing you can suggest that we can change the system, change everything, what would it be? And author, I'll start with you.
Just one. I have a brain full of ideas, but I would say use the voice you have. That's why I wrote this, and I'm guessing that's why a lot of you decided to do it. So, and by the way, my sincere thanks to every one of you for the hard work you did, for the awesome job you did, and bringing tears to my eyes in every scene because of the care you were giving to the characters. So thank you. But be willing to advocate because someone's going to need your help, or someone's going to need your voice to petition a legislature. Someone's going to need your support when they come to you with a story. So be willing to advocate.
All right. Let's jump up to Mayhem. Was one thing you would suggest in order to start making things better?
If you're someone like me, who has grown over the years, and has that has the cojones, so to speak, to help support those, give them that support. You know, try to help them be that voice, especially if you're a survivor like me. If you have the spoons and have the wherewithal to help someone who is lost, like support is a key thing in this. Like let's help this unfortunate type of community, people that we can, you know, support each other, and be a voice for them, for those that feel like they don't have one.
Fantastic. Mira.
I suggested a bunch of like larger changes, but as individuals, the people watching this, the thing that I would say to do is just be conscious of this issue. Like, you don't have to spend all your time dwelling on it. Like, please take care of yourselves. But when you're in a situation where it becomes relevant, just remember that this is a thing that exists. When you're choosing who to vote for, look at their policies on these issues. Whatever position you're in your job or whatever, if you're in the position to be writing policies for a company or creating lesson plans, you think about this issue. And if you're just with your friends and, you know, people are joking, hanging out, just remember in the back of your mind that you don't know what other people have been through and might have experienced. So just, you know, keep it, like, again, you don't have to dwell on it all the time, but just keep it in your back pocket that this is a thing that exists, and let it inform the choices that you make in everyday life.
Let's jump over to Katie Hauser. One thing you can suggest.
Don't start believing people until it affects you. I think something, especially about the scene where it was the mother who was in the nursing home. I think something that was highlighted in that scene was that it was like they didn't believe it until they saw it. Just go into the world knowing that it exists, that people experience this constantly, and that it starts early, and that it starts with us. By simply changing the way that you see the world and how people live in it can make all the difference in the world. And it starts with empathy. Learn empathy and learn love. Yeah, learn to love.
Jacqueline.
I think everyone already said so many great things. But I think the one thing I would encourage everyone is to use your voices and your choices. They matter, they're important, they can make a big difference. That's how most big changes have occurred throughout history, is when people use their voices. And what I mean by that, use your voices to share your stories, use your voices to show empathy towards those who have stories to share, use your voices to choose the right people to govern you and create legislation that uphold you and uphold your rights. So everyone should use their voices and choices. Thanks.
Melanie and Nathaniel's J. Sideburns, future president of the United States, or 7th president of the United States. I'm
That's
sorry,
the best thing I've
I misread the private chat.
Why is it 7th president? Anyway.
We already had a 7th president.
I guess I personally, if I was to suggest one thing, it's education. It's making sure that we're, when we are teaching about consent and sex education, everything, that everything is getting touched on, that everybody knows what is included, and that people are also educating themselves. If they're not learning it, if they're reading it and going, that can't be true, they need to be researching it. They need to be looking into it. Education is so important in this. And the more people that are educated, the more, it could make a difference.
I mean, the thing that I always try to encourage is just more creating safe spaces for people who haven't felt like they could tell their stories to tell their stories. Making sure that we as people are better at listening.
Anybody else? Any final thoughts? Oh, Alec, go ahead.
Honestly, be the lighthouse that you would want someone else to be. Believe people who come to you and do what is within your power to help them. Be their voice, their advocate. Help find and share resources for people.
Well said. And if you are like a handful of us, you're the straight white guy who does not get sexually assaulted virtually ever in your life, and the faceless voice coming to you now counts himself among that. Give your stage to other people. Let other people jump on and use it. So get out there and do things. If you would like to contribute to the Indiegogo campaign to pay the actors, to pay these beautiful professional people, please go to that link that's right there, igg.me/@/U22021, and you can donate on Eventbrite to support our charity partner, Women Against Abuse. They're a nonprofit out of Philadelphia, helping to put an end to this and also to provide resources for women in the Philadelphia area who are actively escaping abuse. Thank you so very much for joining us all tonight. You are part of the change that we are trying to see. And as of right now, according to my handy dandy phone, we have currently raised $525 for Women Against Abuse through our Eventbrite fundraiser. So thank you very much. That, from what I've been told, helps to pay for bed space for, surprisingly enough, about a week and a half. So thank you very, very much for supporting us tonight. Once again, I'd like to thank our entire cast for being a part of this, for Barrett Rhoads, for writing this, for Kristina Coia, for directing and recording all of this, for all of these brilliant performers, some of whom were not able to jump on tonight. Thank you. If you need help, if you need help to get out, go call that number. For the National Sexual Assault Hotline, it's 24/7 number, 800-656-HOPE. That is 800-656 hope, or you can visit RAINN, RAINN.org. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline, again, a 24/7 number, 800-799-SAFE. That number again is 800-799-SAFE. Thank you so very much again for joining us tonight. Be well. I wish you joy, wish you love, and I wish you health. Good night, everybody.